about 40% battery. Oh,
Oh, you're good. We're recording now, so everybody knows now. If you jump off, then
okay.
Word. So what you want to jump right into it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
All right, cool. So bouncing off of what Q was talking about, as far as even freestyling more often, even while off video, and building up that muscle memory, and just knowing how to be able to handle it, and the stresses of being on a fly, and just that being familiar with it, and then that way when you start recording, even if you mess up, you're used to it, so you don't let that stop you and say, oh, I messed up, so I'm gonna stop it right here. No, you keep going, because you practiced enough to where you messed up, and you know that you can fall right back on and get it going. And as you said, it may be bad the first time, or maybe bad up to the 100th time, but that 101st time, you know what I'm saying, that might be golden, but you have to be open to that. And that's why with the whole planning thing, kind of plan to be okay with the chaos of a situation, because if you give up on it, or if you stop short of it, you could miss out. Structure is dope and all, but it's not everything. You got to be okay to say, you know what, if things stray off a bit from this, that's fine. Because that may open you up to another world of something else that you didn't even think was possible. Right. But you got to be okay with it and be able to flow with it. You know what I'm saying? So just like you guys were saying, you're used to keeping tight structure of how you wanted the whole thing to go. Yeah. And for some people, if something goes off of that to where it strays away from it, they may freeze and say, oh, this ain't I didn't plan for this. Right. I don't know how to handle it. So you got to be okay with just being able to just let it go wherever it goes, and be mentally prepared.
Yeah. Well, and I think the key word right there that you just said was flow. I think the flow of things is something that, at least for myself, something that I am after, something that I try and find in conversation, in music, in different types of work. And I think that's something that planning does allow for. I think planning helps to create a flow of things. It gives that structure when needed, those guidelines when needed, so things can flow ahead, as they should. But also not, moving within that structure, I think is exactly what we're talking about right now, letting go and flowing within. And I think that's, for me, is what it's all about.
Yeah, balance.
Yeah, yep. So the balance, between like a rigid structure and then understanding how that structure has to be willing to bend.
Fluid. Yep.
Sometimes, and again, I mean, going back to like the freestyle thing, and I do this with playing guitar and stuff. Sometimes I'll just say fuck it, I'm just gonna play and just let whatever happens, and that's no structure, that's no plan.
Right.
Other times, I say, okay, we're gonna play this exact song, and then play that song exactly as it was recorded. Especially when if I'm playing somebody else's music, I'm gonna play it exactly how they wrote it. And then there's that beautiful in between, especially when you're playing with a live band, you're doing cover songs and stuff, where, okay, the song, how it's written, the start and the end. In the middle, you're free to grow. Okay, right. As long as they stay mostly within this chord structure, I can play. Yep. And then something that jumped out to me when you were talking, Fyne P, is that you almost have to plan for failure sometimes. Not necessarily, okay, my goal here is to fail, but I understand that at any given part of my plan, failure is an option, and I'm okay with that. If live, man, sometimes you play a song and you fuck it up, and it just sucks. We've been playing out before where my singer will just look at me and be like, stop. We're off. We're so far off. We can't get this back. Stop. Right. First time that happened, that's one of the most embarrassing things that can happen to you as a live artist. They just, all right, stop. And everybody's like, oh, you fucked up. But what are you going to do?
Right.
What do you do? Play the next song. Play one you know you're good at, you know. But and then next time we play that song, inevitably we do fine with it, you know. But you have to have a plan that's accepting of failure, you know.
Yeah, and being okay with it. You know what I'm saying? Like not taking it as in I just failed, my life is over. No, it's you know what, I messed up. You know, let's move on. The show must go on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They just keep it going, because if you stop right there, then maybe you'll be remembered as a failure. If that's, you know, that's the last thing people are gonna see of you. But if you keep going, you got a chance to do something that outshines that failure and say, yo, but did you see the next thing he did though?
Yeah.
Got to keep going.
Absolutely, man. One of the things that I thought about a ton, obviously I always find some metaphor for martial arts with every single conversation we have and stuff. And one of the biggest things I thought about, the difference between planning and worrying, I thought very specifically in the context of jiu-jitsu, right? So in jiu-jitsu, the plan is pretty universal and it's very simple. The plan in jiu-jitsu is takedown, control, submit. It's a 3-part plan. The fight starts standing, you take the opponent down, you get them in a controlling position, and you submit them. Whether you strangle them, you choke them unconscious, you break their arm or leg or whatever. That's the idea. It's very simple. Now, each one of those goals, right? So those are our goals. We have 3 goals to get to that ultimate one, right? So we've taken the ultimate goal of submitting and we broke it down into 3 goals, path markers along the way, right? And so this is a structure we use for everything, right? The cliff diving Quince was get on top of the rock, jump into the water, right? The ultimate goal is to jump into the water, but we have to get on top of the rock. You know? So we have benchmarkers along the way. So jiu-jitsu, takedown, control, submit. Now, when you're taking somebody down, I'm not a good wrestler. I'm not a good judoka, right? I'm not good at judo. I'm not really good at takedowns. I've got good defense. So that means if I want to get the fight to the ground, sometimes I have to force that person to try to take me down and I have to capitalize on one of their mistakes. Or I have to try to shoot, and a lot of times that's where I fail. You know, as soon as I end up under that person, they're going to defend, they're going to put me on the ground, and I'm going to be in a bad position. Well, that looks like failure, but the goal of a takedown is to put somebody on the ground. The goal is to go from standing to being on the ground. Okay, so in a way I succeeded. I'm not on top. I'm not in a controlling position, but that's my next goal, right? I don't have to worry about what happens if I fail right now. I don't have to worry about, okay, maybe I shoot a double leg. Maybe I shoot a single leg. Maybe I throw. Maybe I get taken down. I don't have to worry about any of that because once we're on the ground, then it's on to the next step, right? So success can look differently. Ultimately, I was successful. Now I'm just in a different situation where I have to approach the control aspect differently. But I know ultimately from takedown to the ground, there's only 2 possibilities. I'm on top, they're on top. That's it. That's all I have to plan for. But if I worry about having to be the one on top, then if I end up on bottom, then I'm stuck for a minute, then I have to replan.
Right.
You know? So it's just, okay, then that's the freestyle of it. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I know the things I'm good at. Right. I don't necessarily know the things they're good at. And that takes me kind of down another path too, is understanding, all right, what problems am I going to cause? What problems are my opponent going to cause, or what problems is the environment going to cause? You know, if it's a street fight situation, if somebody's attacking me outside of a bar and we're on the curb, there's a drop off, you know, we're in a gravel parking lot, there's certain environmental situations that are going to come up too that I don't have control over. But I have to have a plan for potential, okay, the ground's loose, right? Or my opponent's a really good wrestler, or I'm hurt, or, you know, whatever. I have to have specific plans because I know things that I'm responsible, things that my opponent are responsible for, things the environment are responsible for, right? But that still doesn't ultimately stop my goals, right? I know, okay, takedown, fight's got to get to the ground. Doesn't matter what problems come up. I have to have plans back to this main goal. Once we get on the ground, I've got to get control. What does control look like? Can I control them from the bottom, or do I have to be on top? Then what does the submission look like? Am I going to punch them in the head until they fall asleep? Am I going to capitalize? Are they going to stick their arms out? Am I going to have to take that? Am I going to break their wrist, break their arm, whatever, you know? So I don't necessarily go into the situation with a particular submission in mind, or a particular takedown in mind, or a particular controlling technique in mind. But, and that's the point. That's why you practice jiu-jitsu, is because now I've learned. every single day that I practice, I refine some aspect of that. You know, I refine, I guess, my freestyle in that situation.
Right.
Ultimately, I have a goal. I kind of have something in mind of what I want to do. How I get there is going to change. And especially in sparring, when I'm training with my friends, my training partners and stuff, failure is part of that. Okay, maybe I lose the takedown. All right. Well, now I have to worry about the control. Maybe I lose the control situation. Now I just got to not get submitted. Oh, fuck, I got submitted. I tap, I failed, I learn, I start again.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And then, again, in training too, even if I have success, even if I win the takedown, win the control, win the submission, I still learn what I can do better. I learn what works for me. I learn what I'm good at. I can refine these techniques. Now I start having go-tos. You know, say, I'm guessing it's pretty similar to when you guys freestyle. You have certain topics. Maybe sometimes you're like, oh, man, this is what I'm feeling right now. You have certain lines I'm sure you probably use once in a while to kind of get you back to that flow state, you know, but they come from, okay, these are the things I'm good at. These are the kind of styles I'm good at. These are the beats I like. These are, you know, these are the number of drinks I need to have before I can get in that zone, you know, shit like that. But it's through constant repetition, and it's that acceptance of failure along the way that keeps us from worrying, because we failed enough times. Now we don't have to worry about failing. We plan, okay, failure is an option, and then I overcome that.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that comes with planning is you have expectations for it. And if I rely too heavily on those specific expectations, sometimes even if I get there and I don't get there the way that I thought, sometimes, you know, we talk about success and failure. Sometimes you can succeed, but you don't feel that way. You know, you thought it was going to come out a different way. You're hoping to do this, you're hoping to do that. But I think this is what the planning does. The preparedness does. It does create that outline for you to move in between. You know, you're talking about, songs that you practice, songs that you're playing out. And if you go by that plan and that structure enough to where now you can do this without having to think about it, you start finding the flow within these things. And that can change every time. You can play the same song a different way, you know, every time. But that doesn't come just from winging it the first time.
Right.
You can't hop right in a fight and just wing it without taking those steps beforehand and practicing and planning. So, you know, it helps build that baseline in which, as you get to the next level, you can move in and out of. And it's that, I think, as you were saying, CK, it's all about that balance of being able to do both.
Right. Yeah. And I think with what you just said, it just makes perfect sense as far as the planning and all of that stuff and the repetition and over and over and over and over and over again. All you just did was make it that your brain doesn't have to work hard anymore to execute those things. So all that repetition and practicing just freed your mind up to think about other things. And that's when you're able to tap into that flow of things, because it's like, I'm not concerned with all this other stuff because my muscle memory kicked in. I already know how to adjust with the situation. Now I can think about this. If it's music, now I can go into this riff. I'm just gonna go. I got this in between time right here where it's free. I can do whatever I want. Yep. But all of that practicing and stuff is just bang. Okay, done. Now what else can I use my mental space for? And then that's where the magic happens right there. You know? Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, I mean, you know, we talk about, you know, again, in training, it's fundamentals. It's the basics. Because especially like in striking, man, I always tell my students, and Quince, you and I talked about this a lot when we, you know, we'll go on and we're sparring and stuff like that. What you're going to do when you're under duress is what you already know. Yep. So when you're put in a challenging situation, your mind's on autopilot. So when we drill, we practice fundamentals, you drill that jab 10,000 times. The goal of a jab, again, it's very simple. I want to take this hand, I want to put it on their face, and I want to bring it back to my face and be protected. So much shit can happen in there, right? But if you know, as soon as you're under duress, as soon as you're in trouble, you come back to here, your hands are up, you're shelled, you're moving. If that's your default, the flow in between that is, okay, so he's trying to hit me, I'm protected. Now I can improvise. I can slip. I can move out to the side. I can cut an angle. I can look to counter punch. But, man, I mean, Quince, you felt this too, man. When you take some time off from the mats, the first time you come back sparring, feel how rusty you are. Feel how many times, you know, we come in the first round, you go to throw a punch and you see the other guy flinch. Oh, shit. We're out of practice, you know? And it takes time. It takes that. Now we got to, oh, fuck, I got to go back to just remember to keep my hands up and, you know, and stay in the pocket and stay protected.
And breathe.
Yeah, breathe. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, it's just like you were saying, Fyne P, is that constant repetition. You got to make that automatic. And everything we do is a perishable skill. You know, I'm sure if you guys don't rap for a while, if you don't freestyle for a while, when you try to come back into it, it probably takes you a little while to get loose, get back in the zone, you know, feel like your timing's off, your rhythm's off. I mean, that's the exact same wording I use when I'm talking striking. My timing's off, my rhythm's off, my movement's off, the flow is off. You know, I got to go back. I just got to sit there, hit a bag and just throw a jab 20 times, throw a cross 20 times, slip and roll. I got to do those things to rebuild that fundamental base. And then once I get that back, then now I'll start working on some of that fancier footwork, some of the more fun stuff, you know, but you got to have that automatic, that structure to build on and refine that flow. You know, you got to have that plan.
Right. Because the initial shock of things comes from just not being familiar with it. But if you've done all of that, you keep visiting those, whatever it is, that exercise you're doing, and you keep doing it, now you're ending up in different situations of that particular thing you're doing. So now you may have been in 10 different situations. So now you're not shocked when you start seeing things. You're like, oh yeah, I did this before, or I faced this before, or I did this before. So now it doesn't freeze you up because you recognize it, you know, and that's what it's all about. I mean, that's the beauty of the planning and practicing and all of that stuff, is just to make it so when you're faced with it, you recognize it. You know, and of course you can't plan for everything. That's some things you're going to learn along the way, you know, and then you just add that to your list for next time, you know.
And I think it's, if you're on the outside looking in and watching a performer, you know, or you're watching fighters, or we'll use athletes, you know, you look at an athlete and you're like, well, this dude is 6'6", can jump out the building. He was born to play basketball. So you're watching the game and it looks effortless, but what you don't necessarily see is, you know, the Kobe's or the Jordans or the Steph Curry's shooting 400 shots before the game. And these are people that have been doing it their entire life, and they're still putting up these shots before the game. You know what I mean? And so all of that practice, all of that muscle memory, you know, you might be born talented, but to stay sharp and to stay focused, and certainly to stay, be one of the best at what you do or what you want to do, it's constant practice, you know? So you don't even start to build up that rust. You know, I think that's what a lot of the greats do.
That's crazy that you said that. I mean, that automatically, what do they call it? Shameless plug. You know, just goes off of what you just said. The video that I put up yesterday, there was a line in there that mirrored exactly what you said. I said, you lose something when you press the snooze button. What it takes to get places is camouflaged by wealth. You know, you see the success of the situation only, you know, but what it took to get there, you don't see it. You just see the money. Oh, I want that lifestyle. But you don't know what all they did to get there. The nights they stayed up, lost all the sleep, you know, the bruises, you know, the relationship loss, everything they went through. All you see is the glamour, you know, and it's crazy how that works, man. But it's a lot of work that gets put in that people everybody forgets about it. As soon as they see the success, that's all they want is the success, but not the pain that goes into it.
Right. Planning and the work. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's man, I love that shit, man. One of the I read I want to say it was in one of Gary Vee's books, but basically if you want to be a millionaire, if you think, you know, like you said, if you see that glamour, if you see that success, if you want to be that, learn what that takes. Don't even do anything yet. Just learn what that takes. learn what that guy's lifestyle is, find out what that person's daily routine is, find out how long it's been there. And you say sacrifice relationships, late nights, early, because it's not just being tired. You know, if it was just a lot of work, if it was just being tired, I think a lot more people would be successful. It's sacrifice. You know, it's sacrifice. It's not, you know, again, if you want to be a millionaire, it's not spending money on frivolous things. And if we're being honest, frivolities are what make life fun. You know, there's not a lot of necessary fun. You know, everything we do for fun is extra. Yeah. You know, if you have a certain goal, if you want to get there, if you want to be a millionaire, if you want to be a champion, it's every single thing you do at every single moment of your life is dedicated to that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's you have to read, you have to learn how to invest, you have to learn how to plan your finances, you have to skimp, you have to do the bare minimum to get by, you have to get rid of all the pomp and frills of life. You don't get to have as many friends. The relationships are freaking hard when you're goal oriented, especially when you have a lofty goal. You want to be a millionaire, when you want to be a world champion, when you want to be the best in your field, you know? So you sit there and this, honestly, probably the biggest piece of advice I got that made me not care about material wealth anymore. I don't give a shit to be a millionaire anymore, because I actually started learning and looking at the guys that were successful and had all this money, and those motherfuckers grind, man. Like, I like to think the three of us, you know, work pretty hard in our own areas, and a lot of self-improvement and stuff, but holy shit, man, you look at those guys and it's 20 hours a day for years and years and years at a time. And every single one of them has multiple divorces. They have estranged relationships with their kids. And there's a trail of tears behind that. I probably shouldn't even, probably a less extreme version of that word to use. But I mean, there's, you know, it's destruction, it's pain behind them, you know, and then they get to this place, and that the cliche is, you know, people that have material wealth oftentimes aren't happy. Well, no shit, they're not happy. Look at what it takes to get there. I don't want that. I don't want that kind of work. That goal is not that important to me. You know, shit like this, being able to have a conversation with people that have similar goals and have similar, you know, requirements out of life. I mean, as soon as we get off here, I'm going to go outside and sit in the sunshine, go down to the creek with the girl and the dog. You know what I mean? Like that, to me, boom, that's it. The Mexican fisherman story we talked about before, Quince, you know, like, I'm not going to grind like that for a life that I could already have if I reframe that mindset, you know? So I know what that planning is. I'm not about it.
Very good.
You know? Yeah. It's like it's what do they call it? So is it subjective? Is that the word that they say when success is? It's pretty much what you think success is. You know, it's your idea of it. But when you're chasing someone else's idea of success, that may not be the thing that's even going to make you happy. It made them happy, but that's what worked for them. You know, but when we, in order for me to think that I'm successful, I need the mansion and the 50 cars and the this and this and that. That if you don't get that whole time while you don't got that, you're miserable. Yeah, I'm not successful yet. But that person who has all that may be looking at what you got and be like, man, I missed that. My mind was in so much peace back then. Now everybody's pulling at me from every different direction. Everybody wants something. You see, so it's all about perspective, you know. And I think a lot of us are more successful than what we believe we are. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah.
No, for sure. I had the opportunity to go and see some family last weekend, I think it was, out on Cayuga Lake, and I saw my two brothers, and my one brother had been up from the city, and it was late night, and we just got in the conversation. You know, he's a very successful individual. He's very driven. You know, we're talking six figures at a corporate job, you know, corporate management job, and he's good at what he does. But he says he's got the money, you know, he's got the things that he had set out for. But the things that start slipping, you know, whether it's relationship, whether it's his own health, sometimes it's not worth it. You know, he's got to go. He's thinking about, you know, not an early retirement, but stopping for a little while and taking up something that he really just enjoys. to do and where he needs to be. Because he's like, you know, you should see it. The place that he had in New York was beautiful, up on like the 40th story, and you could see the Empire State Building and MSG and, you know, all that other great shit. But he's like, look, man, I don't even have time to go up to the roof and relax. He's like, I'm constantly traveling. I'm constantly grinding. And he's like, and it's not just me. He's like, everyone I work with or come into contact are still making these sort of sacrifices. And to some people, you know, he's like, some of the people that I work with, he's like my boss, because I think he's a VP even. He's like his boss. He's on his 4th marriage because the dude always just puts work ahead. And I don't know, maybe he doesn't mind, but I'm sure that shit is stressful. Not only for him, but, you know, whoever is in a relationship with or whoever, you know, is in his family, that's going to affect. And my brother's just like, I don't want to be in that position. You know, the money's good. I know what it's like to have money. And I've gotten used to it, but he's like, I know that I'm going to have to probably change my lifestyle, and, you know, and live by whatever means I can, so I can get that balance back into my life.
Yeah.
You know, and it's real. And it just, you know, having a conversation with him, if you guys have met him, you'd know how very driven he is and self-motivated. So to hear him have this sort of insight was, it was refreshing. It was surprising, but it was refreshing.
I really think it speaks to the truth of it. Cause I mean, as much as kind of a little self-reflection, I've been going, I feel a little bit arrogant saying, you know, like this, I'm living the life right now, but I mean, it feels true to me, you know, and I think there's a certain amount of truth. Quince, we talk about this a lot. When you and I have a conversation, or when we find something in our own personal meditations, and then later we read it or hear it from somebody who's also been there, you know, like when I started studying Stoicism, so much of the shit I read, I was like, wow, I've had that thought. And, but it's reinforced by people by more legitimate sources, you know? So when you talk about your brother, who is, all the trappings of material success, and then he's like, man, I got to pump my brakes. I got to find something meaningful in life. Right. You hear somebody say that, man, that's just so profound. And it's such a, I mean, I'm grateful that your brother is going through that so I can learn from it, you know, and for you, obviously you sharing that story with us and everything. And that's a significant thing, you know, for him to go through those toils and for him to share that experience and have that perspective, man. He's enriching people's lives by having that understanding, by going through those steps. You know, he's touching the stove. He's saying it's hot. I believe him. I'm not gonna touch that stove, you know? Absolutely. So, but it's so amazing. It's so reinforcing. And it's so, those are, I mean, endless moments of inspiration you get from seeing things that you think you understand. Cause I think I understand that. I've never had money like that. I've never been through it. I don't know that I understand it, you know? Like you guys both said in different ways, this conversation, like you have to have that experience to know it and to grow through it. I don't have to have that experience. I believe the people that have been there now, you know? Right. So that's, I hope that he makes those steps, and I hope that he finds that, you know, that relief that he's looking for sure.
Yeah. Being able to adjust and see, you know, how they say different people learn different ways. Some people have to go through it. Some people can learn from somebody else's experience, you know what I'm saying? As long as it's a trustworthy person, someone you believe. You're like, this person went through it, I'm gonna take that word for it. You know? That's a beautiful thing, because it's like, all right, you're living something that I'm trying to attain. You're telling me something true about it. Okay, well maybe I need to go back to the drawing board and think about that. You know, that was a meme, or somebody said something about Jim Carrey. I believe that he said, I wish that everybody gets success or gets wealthy or famous or whatever it is, so they can see that it's not what you want. It's not all that you think it is. You know, and that's just like, from somebody as big as him saying that, it's like, come on, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Things, man.
Absolutely. Hey guys, we got about we have 7 minutes. I'm going to try to keep it to 5 so we can stop this recording and then hop off of here before we just get kicked off abruptly. But yeah, holy shit, guys, this has been Awesome.
Flew by. Time flew by.
Yeah, absolutely. So almost 40 minutes again on the second one. That'll round us out to about an hour today, guys. And I could definitely sit here for longer and keep riffing. But I know Quince, obviously you got beautiful places to be today. CK, I see you got the young man there with you, so I'm sure you guys got some fun stuff planned for the afternoon.
Yeah. It's always a beautiful thing. And even with the little man, I mean, we plan and we don't plan, but at the end of the day, we have a great time doing whatever it is that comes about, But one last thing that, I heard you guys say something that's putting that on my mind as far as with the whole plan thing, as far as to how somebody's life is going to end up, how you want, or whatever you think success is, or this, that. Sometimes, you got to start thinking that about other things, because when you work so hard for something because you just banked on it, you just put this is what's going to make me happy, planned about it, you get there, but you've never experienced it. But once you finally get it, then you realize, well, I'm still not happy. You see what I'm saying? A lot of people end up in that situation, and that's where the sadness and depression and this, and so it's just something for people to think about. You can, if you've never experienced it, don't bank on it and say that this is going to be the cure.
So I've been listening to a lot of Coach Trevor Whitman. Most notably, he's the coach for Justin Gaethje, who just won championship fight last weekend or the weekend before in UFC. Trevor Whitman's, I think he's got 18 people that he's coached to world titles and stuff. So he's a prominent coach. And I was listening to him talk about success and about being a world champion and the mentality of being a world champion. And he said, the thing that stuck with me so much, he's like, when you get there, nothing changes.
It's like melted.
He said, when you get your hand raised, when they put that strap around you, he said, your world doesn't look any different. You still go home to the same house, the same girl, the same friends, the same work. It doesn't look any different. So don't put it in your mind that once you get to the top that all of a sudden your world's going to change. And from a guy who's been there and put so many athletes through those steps and can say that shit hit me hard, man. And I don't want anything to change. And that's, kind of for me, it was a reaffirmation. Like my goal of self-improvement, man, when I get to the top, I don't want things to change.
Right.
And that's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, and I don't know how many times, both, even in separate conversations with you, Rick, and with you, CK, that, money is, or whatever you think is the reason that it might be outside of yourself. I mean, you got to be sure, like I don't do what I do because I think it's going to make me $1 million. I'm not a musician in upstate New York because I expect them to come and follow me. But I do what I do because I enjoy who that makes me every day and increasing. So being better at these certain things brings me joy. Meeting people with like-minded people and having these sort of conversations brings me joy continuously.
Yeah.
And so it is. It's constantly redefining what that success is for you. And I don't know if we're going off a topic from the preparedness to
I
where we're at now.
To wrap it all up, so don't you worry.
But we'll go ahead and do that, man, because I'd keep going in and in on it.
Yeah. So I think the planning's important, but at the end it's all about the work. Plan to work, and that's, something I think we can all resonate with, man, is just loving the work. If you love the work, life's a breeze,
Yeah.
Right.
Plan, work, be flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, guys. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today, this beautiful day. Gentlemen, I look forward to doing it again soon.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's always an awesome experience, man.
It's always a pleasure, guys. You guys go enjoy the day.
Likewise. Peace, fellas.